This video is sponsored by HelloFresh. Stay tuned till the end of the video to learn more. You found yourself at the chip aisle of your local grocery store, once again paralyzed by the abundance of choices. Potato, tortilla, veggie, they all look delicious, and while it might seem safe to grab just any bag from the shelf, it turns out that some of these bags are liars, and some of these chips are more like chips. Hi, I'm Ian Brutal Foods, and welcome to Volume 1 of the Essential Guide to Chips, the video series specifically designed to help you familiarize yourself with the various chips that you might encounter in your journey across the planet Earth. In this episode, more like just America. This episode is mostly going to focus on chips that I'm familiar with, and when I think potato chip, the first thing that comes to mind is a Lay's Classic. The Lay's chip brand is currently owned by the enormous PepsiCo Inc. and has been pretty unavoidable throughout my entire life. In practically every store I've ever been in where food is a feature, the Lay's logo likely lurked. They come in an abundance of different flavors, but we're gonna start off with the simplest circle of just potatoes, vegetable oil, and salt. Simple really is an apt adjective for this no-frills chip, and if I were to describe it in a single sentence, that sentence would be, it's a potato chip. It's crunchy, very salty, and it pairs well with dips, but it's pretty plain on its own. I'm gonna be rating the chips in this video using the BMBS grading system of excellence, and my personal scores will be displayed alongside the score awarded to it by an impartial third party, the brutalmoose Bureau of Taste. I'm providing these ratings because it seems like a good idea to offer a second opinion to my own, even if we all secretly know that I'm right. I give the Lay's Classic chip a B-, while the Bureau of Taste offers it a C+. An iconic chip for sure, but it's not the bag I reach for first. But Lay's is not the only brand with a simple potato chip, so let's take a look at another. Tim's Cascade Snacks is a brand of chips that I was unfamiliar with during my youth, but I've fallen in love with them since moving to the Pacific Northwest. Tim's is mostly known for their delicious kettle chips, but they've recently started offering Tim's Thins, a line of chips designed to directly compete with the Lay's Classics of the world. It's a 3-ingredient chip just like the Lay's, however, instead of vegetable oil, they use sunflower and/or safflower oil. That might not seem like it would make a big difference, but apparently it does, because I'm awarding it an A- and the Bureau of Taste seems to agree. I'm not sure if it's the oil that makes the difference, or if maybe the Tim's chips use less salt, but for whatever the reason, I find the Tim Thins to be less salty, more potato-y, and it's just hard to stop myself from eating a whole bag, whereas with the classic Lay's, I usually have to call it quits pretty quickly because of the salt level. If you ever find yourself in the neighborhood, keep an eye out for that striped bag and give them a try. Chip number 3 is a fun take on the plain potato chip, coming to us from one of the largest American fast food chains, Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is known from coast to coast for its unique waffle-cut french fries and its occasional opposition to same-sex marriage. These chips stand out because of how they mirror the appearance of the previously mentioned waffle-cut french fries, and as far as I could tell, they didn't taste religiously or politically charged, for whatever that's worth. In fact, they just kind of taste like potato sticks, another crunchy potato snack that I'm familiar with. They also taste very, very salty, more so than the Tim's Thins. The waffly style also makes the chip crunchier, which I think is nice. I like a good crunch. The novelty of these funky-looking chips definitely plays a part in their final rating, as does the fact that they're only sold at Chick-fil-A restaurants, making them a little more elusive and exciting to obtain. With that in mind, I give the Chick-fil-A waffle potato chips a B, and the Bureau of Taste awards them a slightly higher A-. They're salty, tasty, and just kind of a fun-shaped chip to munch on when you have the chance. Before we get into some more interesting flavors of chips, let's take a look at one of the most popular twists on the traditional potato chip, the Pringle. Pringles have a lot of differences from normal potato chips, and that's made immediately clear by their tubular packaging, as well as the longer list of ingredients. Invented by Procter & Gamble researchers in response to consumer complaints about regular chip bags containing broken or stale chips, Pringle chips are stacked vertically and delivered in a cylindrical container to avoid breakage, and are advertised as being far less greasy than the typical Chipicle.
Pringles newfangled potato chips.
Every single Pringles potato chip is the perfect potato chip.
They're not broken, taste a lot fresher too. The canister keeps them that way for you.
I know I've been calling them chips thus far, but perhaps crisps might be the better term. Originally, Pringles were marketed as Pringles Newfangled Potato Chips, which is a much better name, by the way, but other snack manufacturers argued that Pringles didn't qualify as a potato chip at all since they're made with a potato-based dough instead of potato slices. The only way Pringles could continue to call itself a chip was if they used very specific descriptors alongside it. Not ideal.
Pringles newfangled potato chips.
Instead, Pringles decided to simply reclassify itself as a crisp, which takes it out of direct competition with the previous chips, but they still score a great rating. Once you pop, you just can't stop might be the most accurate tagline for a chip that I've ever heard, because I find it very hard not to eat a full tube of these things. And while the standard plain Lays are a little boring, standard plain Pringles are incredibly addicting. I just wish they hadn't ruined the branding is all. Alright, let's pull a Guy Fieri and take this video on a trip to Flavortown. No more boring potato chips. Instead, let's go for one of Lay's many flavors, the cheddar jalapeno. The bag might brag that this chip is cheesy, spicy, crispy, and but the first word I'd use to describe these chips is smelly. It's a very smelly chip. I admit that they do pack a little bit of heat, but it's not enough to distract me from the strange mac and cheese powdery flavor. And as far as the jalapeno taste goes, I honestly think it tastes more like a cheesy broccoli to me. Not that that's a terrible thing, I just don't like a cheesy broccoli chip. Low ranks for this underwhelming chip, unfortunately. I have a hard time giving it anything higher than a D. Ruffles is a popular brand of crinkle-cut potato chips that's owned by Lay's parent company, Frito-Lay. These chips have unique ridges that not only provide a different texture from a regular chip, but it makes them stronger too, which makes Ruffles great for dipping into dips. The sour cream and cheddar Ruffles are by far and away my favorite flavor. In fact, the other ones might as well not even exist for me. This is a chip that needs no dip because it's so sour creamy that it honestly already kind of tastes like it's been dipped right into sour cream. It's got a real zip to it, which complements the more subtle cheese taste. I also think that this is the most fragrant of the chips that I'll be talking about today. A bowl of the sour cream and cheddar Ruffles can really smell up a room in a tasty kind of way. I especially like when you get a chip with extra powder on it. Those extra powdery, oily chips taste almost buttery to me, and while the Ruffle chip is more sturdy than a Lay's classic, it's not sharp and jagged to the point where it cuts your mouth. I have no complaints here, which is why the Ruffles sour cream and cheddar chips get a perfect A+ from me, though it is brought down to earth a little bit with a less flashy A from the Taste Bureau. All right, I'd like you to take a quick second for me and clear your head of all chip thought. Any chip-related thoughts buzzing around your brain, cast them out. Instead, I want you to imagine what your ideal vacation to the tropical island of Maui would be like. If you're anything like me, you're picturing yourself on the beach, soaking up the sun, looking out into the ocean, sitting atop a giant pile of onions. If that's your ideal Maui getaway, then Tim's Cascade Snacks Sweet Maui Onion Chips might just be the snack for you. Full disclosure, I prefer the Sweet Maui Onion Rings, but the chip variant is a close second place. This is the sweetest chip on the list by far, but not in a way that reads dessert. Instead, imagine, if you will, a sweeter Funyun, and you might be on the right track to licking the taste with your mind's tongue. Instead of being a puffy ring, however, it's a crunchy, kettle-style potato chip. These are really great chips. They are extremely crunchy, they don't skimp on the flavor, and they earn solid marks. I think I would rate them a little bit higher if I wasn't already aware of the rings, but the chips are still very tasty and would be perfect for a luau, apparently. A newer iteration of the sweet Maui onion chips are the Big Wave crinkle cut version. These are similar to the Ruffles, but they're also clearly no competition for the Ruffles. They're not even competing with the regular Big Maui onion chips, honestly. I was hoping that the flavor waves would really pack a punch, but I actually found them to be lacking in flavor, and something about the texture I didn't really like. I'm not sure that styrofoamy is the right word, but something about it displeased my mouth. It must have displeased the taste bureaus too, because we've both opted to rate the Big Wave Maui onion chips with a D+, not great. Cheeto fans, don't fret. We can't complete the first entry into the Essential Chip Guide without mentioning the classic crunchy cheese corn puff. Cheetos are the top-selling brand of cheese puffs in the US, and there's a few good reasons as to why that is. But first, did you know that they were invented by the same guy that invented the Frito? Do you care? Cheetos are an iconic chip. I'd argue that they're even more of a staple than the classic Lay's potato chip. Although there are a few other great brands of cheese puffs out there, there's simply no replacement for a Cheeto. Salty, cheesy, buttery, and downright addictive. If you're not hungry for one by now, then I'm not really sure what's wrong with you. A+s all around. I simply cannot complain about a crunchy Cheeto, and perhaps the only other cheese snack worth comparing it to is its close relative, the Puff. You might be surprised to learn that the Cheeto Puff didn't hit the market until 23 years after the original Crunchy Cheeto did, but even though it's the younger sibling, it's definitely some tough competition. Although the name kind of implies that they're supposed to be soft, the Puffs do still crunch a little, and they're just as buttery, salty, and cheesy as their older sibling. Airy, light, oily, these are all words that I'd use to distinguish how the Puffs are different from the Crunchy. I'm sure there are fierce debates to be had about which version of Cheeto is best. I thought long and hard about it, and I decided that if I had to choose which of the two to be stuck with forever, I think I'd have to choose the Crunchy. There's no equivalent for either version, but I think if I lost the Puffs, I'd simply switch to Pirate's Booty, maybe some Utz cheese balls. Not the same thing, but still pretty darn good. Although apparently I could live without them, Cheeto Puffs are still an irreplaceable chip, and it shouldn't shock you that they also earn an A+ rating. Now, while working on this video, I noticed something odd about the Cheeto bags that I'd like to point out. Each bag features a picture of Chester Cheetah on the front, and I noticed after staring at them for a while that it appears that his body mimics the shape of the chips. Look at his torso here, big and puffy. It looks just like a Cheeto Puff. On the Crunchy bag, it's thin and a little lumpy. I have no idea if this was intentional. I tried to look into it and could not find out, but let me know what you think. It seems too big of a coincidence for it to be a coincidence. Doritos 3D Crunch was a line of chips that existed back in the 90s, and 20 years later, Doritos finally decided to bring them back. Well, kind of. It's more like they brought back the idea of Doritos 3D Crunch so that they could capitalize on the nostalgia without providing the original flavors that I so desperately loved. Instead, we have chili cheese nacho, which immediately sounds less appealing to me than just plain cheese nacho, or nacho cheese. It's worth noting that I don't like change, and I especially don't like people messing with my nostalgia, so these chips already have a couple strikes against them. That said, they're still pretty good. The taste actually reminds me of chili cheese Fritos, which I do also enjoy. The 3D shape is a real treat too. I mean, it's the whole reason you're buying the chip, basically. Funny enough, the one thing it doesn't remind me of is a Dorito. I mean, it's a triangle, sure, but that's about it. Despite not being the mini 3D nacho cheese Doritos of my youth, this version is still a good chip that's worth a try, particularly because of its fun shape. It gets a B- from me, and a B- from the Taste Bureau as well. Unfortunately, the spicy ranch version of Doritos 3D Crunch isn't quite up to snuff. While they do have a nice spice to them that's hot but not too hot, the taste really isn't there. It's vaguely ranchy, but it still evokes memories of a Frito more than a Dorito. They also taste a little bugly to me. It's a little strange. If you're wanting to give the Doritos 3D a try, I definitely recommend the nacho chili cheese over the spicy ranch. All right, let's end on something a little wacky, why don't we? Takis are rolled tortilla chips that pride themselves on being intimidatingly spicy. They originated in Mexico, but have over time expanded to have a healthy portion of shelf space at my local grocery store up here in Washington State. The blue Takis are a bit more of a mystery to me. I'm not sure who decided that this was a necessary evil, but the blue color is not appealing to my eyeballs. These are not blue as in blue corn tortilla chips. I'm talking about a blue powder dusted on top of a rolled tortilla snack. The nicest way I can describe the appearance of these chips is, Smurf dildos. Full disclosure, I am not always a fan of spicy chips, and this is the very first time I'm ever trying a Taki. Blue Takis are definitely spicy. One chip alone might not convince you of that, but if you continue to eat them, the heat will definitely build. Also, it turns your tongue blue. As far as the taste goes, it's actually pretty subtle. I was surprised that with such a horrid blue color, they taste mostly like a plain, salty tortilla chip. You feel the heat, but there's not a strong taste that comes along with it, which was strange for me. I did get a hint of lime in there, but it's mostly just a spicy tortilla. Not exactly my cup of tea, and the blue powder is incredibly off-putting, so I'm gonna give the blue Takis a D+. The Taste Bureau, possibly out of spite, has decided to rate them with an A+, which, I mean, that's just excessive. I disagree. I filed a complaint. But there's not much more I can do. So that's gonna do it for the first installment of the Essential Guide to Chips. Honestly, I'm just kinda rolling the dice on this idea, and the future of the series largely depends on how well it connects with other chip enthusiasts out there. So if that's you, be sure to let me know how you liked it, and feel free to let me know what type of chips I should look at next. And if this is a horrible idea, I mean, I'm sure the view count will reflect that. In fact, I'm pretty sure the view count will reflect that. Shut up, loser. Hey everybody, it's me. I'm still Captain Chefy in Brutal Foods. I'm still sailing aboard the USS Fresh. I still have nightmares about failures I made decades ago. And I'm still here to talk to you about today's sponsor, HelloFresh. We've talked a lot about snacks today, but now it's time to talk about real food. You know it, you love it, all the kids are crazy for it. Real food is a staple of any normal human earthling's diet. The problem is that real food is also cumbersome to prepare on a daily basis. Not only do you have to plan out the meals in advance, but you also have to find the time to acquire the ingredients. In some cases, you might even have to forage for spices or hunt for a piece of protein. But not anymore. With HelloFresh, you no longer have to track down wild animals just to put food on your plate. You don't even have to leave the house, you lazy piece of shit. I love HelloFresh. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you are trying to cut the habit of ordering in every night, this is your solution. It's right here. They invented it. I found it. It will save you money. It's right here. HelloFresh delivers mouth-watering seasonal recipes and fresh pre-measured ingredients right to your door. All you have to do is prepare them. Stop stressing about what you're going to make for dinner next week and let a magical website take care of that for you. Choose from a constantly evolving selection of delicious recipes that can be easily prepared by even the most novice of chefs, and be dazzled by HelloFresh's oven-ready meals and market items like ready-to-eat salads, sandwiches, and soup. I also have to mention how flexible it is, because being able to pause your deliveries whenever you want is super helpful in case you find yourself on an extended adventure outside of this dimension. Just hit pause on your meals, and when you're back home, you can start them back up again. Go to HelloFresh.com and use code brutalmoose14 to get 14 free meals plus free shipping. That's 14 free meals across your first 5 HelloFresh boxes at HelloFresh.com with the promo code brutalmoose14. Thank you for watching this video until the very end, and thanks again to HelloFresh for continuing to sponsor my videos. It's pretty rad. How do I get out of here?